Hello Axie Faction, welcome back. And what a week it has been! With everything from new leaks to new burning mechanisms, it feels like we're getting something new every single day. Taking everything we learned this past week, I've compiled a list of what I think are my best theories for what we might see moving into Battles v3. But you should understand that this is purely speculative. I am not a financial advisor, I am not an expert by any means. I am a gamer and a crypto enthusiast. I love Axie Infinity, and I think sharing ideas is the best way to strengthen the community. Alright, we've got a lot to get into today, but as always, I'll walk you through every step of my thought process. Let's get right into it. Now for me, the most exciting part of these leaks were the updated power-up art. The implications of these seemingly innocuous objects are actually massive, and if you follow me on Twitter, you already have an idea of what I mean. But I have a lot more to show you than just a tweet, and we're going to get into that at the end of the video because for now I want to talk about Ronin. But first, if you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. Plus, I have a huge giveaway planned as soon as we hit our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and we are so close. So keep your eye out for that in the future, and a massive thank you to you all. All right, let's get right back into it. I recently did a video where I suggest Ronin might replace SLP as players' main source of income. But what I didn't talk about in that video is Ronin's release strategy. Which is interesting because so far, all we know is that they've allocated 10% for the purpose of farming. So where's the other 90% coming from? Well, in the December development update, they say that the Ronin token will ensure Ronin is owned by the community that uses it. And further down, in reference to Project K and Battles v3, they say, each of these games will include a number of new features that will affect economy balance. Taking both of these statements into account, it leads me to believe that we may be able to earn Ronin in Battles v3. I've been hearing a lot of talk about getting rid of SLP for adventure mode. But if they want to reduce SLP earnings for PvE, they're going to have to add something else to give players incentive to play it. And it's certainly possible that one of these incentives come in the form of Ronin. This makes so much sense to me. If we had SLP dedicated to PvP and Ronin dedicated to PvE, it would reduce the amount of SLP being minted, helping to balance the economy. It also gives Axie Infinity players the opportunity to earn their gas fees for future transactions, as well as incentive for players of all skill level to explore the Axie Infinity storyline. And of course, it will ensure that Ronin is community owned. Now, I don't think this is going to be all 90%. Chances are we will also see things like Ronin staking and other methods for attaining it as well. I'm also not a tokenomics expert. Regardless, I hope Sky Mavis implements something like this. Alright, so next up, I want to talk about this video right here. More specifically, I want to focus on the new status effects like Taunt and Rage. Now let's start off with Taunt. Now this is really interesting because it's a status effect I've seen before, but not in Axie Infinity. No, I know Taunt from a game called Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, Taunt works very similar to Aroma. It forces all enemy attackers to target that specific creature with Taunt. And if we look at this new animation for Taunt, well, the symbolism of the actual target over top of the Axie makes me think it's accomplishing the same goal. But how is this going to be different from Aroma? And is Aroma even going to be in Battles v3? Well, I don't have the answers to that, but I do have some pretty cool ideas about Rage. Now, Rage is a bit different because I've never seen or heard of Rage being used in other card games. So let's start looking at context clues and see if we can't put some puzzle pieces together. I see here that Rage is being used by a beast, which makes sense because if you asked me what class I think is most likely to go into a Rage, I would say Beast. We all know that pure beasts have the highest morale stat in the game, but this is actually their downfall. A class like Mech actually performs a lot better because it trades some of that morale for skill and speed. This is because currently, morale's biggest utility is a higher chance for a critical hit, and we all know how flawed that system is. So instead of taking a flawed system and implementing it into their new game, I think they're going to come up with a brand new utility for morale. And I think that utility may be Rage. Now, how this works, I don't know. It might be a power meter that levels up faster the higher your morale is. And when that power meter is full, your next hit is a guaranteed critical. This would take the RNG out of the crit system and hopefully keep critical hits out of the hands of Aquas and keep them in the hands of beasts. Now, I'm just speculating here, but I think this could be a great idea to breathe new life into a dead class. Also, beasts are my favorite class, so I can't wait to see them get the love they deserve. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into power-ups is this juicy piece of lore. Now, this may seem like a goofy little story at first, but there's actually a lot more than meets the eye. It reads, Bubba was born in a quaint village near the Lunasia forest. A little village like this, perhaps? Then it reads, as a young lad, Bubba marveled at the metalled frontier battalions as they marched through his homeland. This sparked his dream of becoming the greatest soldier in Lunasia. Think about it. Battalions and soldiers? Does this mean Axies have their own organized military? And if so, who are they fighting? Now this, part beaver, part man, may be one of the races that are waging war against Lunasia, but that also begs the question. If there are creatures waging war against Lunasia, then there could be areas outside of Lunasia itself that we can explore. Lunasia is the Axie homeland, and this is where you can purchase your own plots of land. You see, I find it interesting that they don't call it Project L for Lunasia, they call it Project K for Kingdom, or kingdoms. If there are areas to explore outside of player-owned plots, then this game gets a lot more exciting for non-land owners. But there's still a bit more lore to go through. This part says, when Bubba rages, his eyes flash furiously with the intensity of electrical current. Now here they are talking about rage again. Now if that's not foreshadowing critical hits, it's definitely referring to something powerful. Now we've already covered a lot of ground, and if I've missed anything, please be sure to let me know in the comments below. But for now, I want to talk about power-ups. Now, this is possibly the biggest leak we've gotten in a long time, and I'll tell you why. Now, if you remember back in December, they showed us some leaks of unfinished power-up art. The key word here is unfinished. I'm sure most of you are aware of this leak over here. Now, I recently did a video where I suggest that these slots might very well be power-up slots. But it wasn't until we received this updated power-up art that all the puzzle pieces fell into place and my suspicions were confirmed. So what do we actually know about these power-ups? Well, Sky Mavis hasn't given us a ton of detail, but they have told us that these will be body part power-ups. As we all know, Axies have 6 body parts, so you might think they have 6 power-up slots as well. But actually, if we check out that leak image from before, we can actually count 7 power-up slots, not 6. So chances are we are looking at 1 power-up per body part, and then an additional power-up for either the body type or the class of the Axie. You see, power-up is like a buff, so if we're buffing the cards that are attached to these body parts, what is the 7th slot supposed to power up? Could it be that the 7th slot is reserved for a type of finisher move that we can only access when our rage meter is full? Well, maybe, but in fact, Zayori actually just touched on this topic recently, so let's go over and hear what they said.
It feels like maybe Origin will allow people to have kind of one Axie team that they can grow up with and customize a little bit and be able to use maybe some of these power-ups and different things in order to remain relevant with kind of a single team of Axies.
I think there's a desire to turn Axie into a little bit more of what feels like, I would call it deck building experience, where you just have more ways to customize and it's less about being locked in.
Did you catch that? I mean, when directly asked about power-ups in Battles V3, Zayori responds by saying we want Battles V3 to be more of a deck building experience. Now, to me, this means 2 things. First, it means power-ups could very likely be used in competitive play. Also, that sounds like power-ups might not just buff the card attached to the body part, they might change the card altogether. For example, this bird was very popular in Season 19, but due to the recent nerf to Little Owl, it is no longer viable. Players have been quick to go out and find other birds to suit their need, but instead of buying a brand new bird to replace this one that only has 1 bad card, what if we can replace that bad card with one of our power-ups? This would be an amazing change for the ecosystem and also allow players to stay more competitive in a changing meta. But regardless of whether these power-ups are buffs or card replacements, let's look at each one and see if we can't take a guess at what it could be. So the first power-up is a turtle. Now it's pretty clear to me that due to the color and the creature on this power-up, it is most likely for a reptile part and probably has something to do with buffing shield. Next up, we have an outstretched paw with his claws bared. And again, due to the color, we can assume that this is a beast based body part power-up. And if I had to guess, I would probably say that this buffs attack. Now this one is really interesting, and I actually have two ideas for this. First off, due to the color, I want to assume that it's a plant-based power-up. So if we're to assume that this is a buff and not a replacement, then it is likely going to add text to the cards saying, when used, return to the deck instead of the discard pile. Otherwise, if it is a card replacement, then it might be a card that allows us to shuffle our hand back into the deck and draw the same number of cards, like a mulligan. The next one shows a rising sun with sun rays beaming through the pink clouds. And while I don't have any good ideas on what this power-up could do, it seems very clear to me that due to the color and the symbolism of the image, that this power-up is likely for a Dawn body part. Which begs the question, if Dawns will be receiving their own power-ups, could they be receiving their own cards as well? And if so, what about Dusks and Mechs? Well, that is going to have to be a topic for another video. If you want to learn more about power-ups and evolution, check out this video over here. I'll see you there. Thanks.